The Simplex Prophecy by Mark Renhouse. Chapter 1, The Purple Flash. My name is Father Michael Patrick Duffy, SP, and although my heritage is Irish Catholic, I mention it only because in these latter days, race and ethnicity are such an essential part of a person's identity. Not so with me. So let's get it clear right now that being Irish has nothing to do with my spirituality or my story, but the SP in my title, which stands for Simplex Priest. Understanding that term is the key to appreciating and acting upon the prophecy I'm about to reveal. Let me begin by summarizing my 30 years of experience in the Simplex ministry. It's not a typical Christian ministry in any sense, really, except one. A simplex priest, or sacerdotal simplex, that's the Latin term, means mass priest, or more accurately, a mass-only priest. It is an ordained ministry, but it is a subset of what you normally think of when you think of a Catholic priest. I am a Catholic priest and I preside at Mass. The difference between me and most other priests is that Mass is my only duty. I possess the faculty for presiding at Mass, but nothing more. Full faculty diocesan priests make fun of us, simplex priests. They say we are priests without all our faculties. Get it? And the fact is that many of us aren't that bright. They also call us the gay dunces of the church. But all this negativity aside, the real thing that makes regular priests squeamish about our unique ministry is our emphasis on magic. All simplex priests believe that the real presence is a tabernacular presence that can be communicated with. Most Catholic priests think that this is a heretical teaching. How does a man become a priest? I can't answer that question for any other person other than myself. I suppose every man's journey to the priesthood is unique. For instance, I knew I wasn't the right stuff for priestly ministry because I barely graduated from high school. And please don't tell anybody, but I had to cheat to get my diploma. I think they knew I cheated though, because in my senior year, my guidance counselor would not allow me to apply to colleges. Vocational training or nothing, she told me. And please don't tell anybody, but I cried when I got home. Let's go to the 1980s when I was in my 20s. I was a sad person, probably because I had a lowly job as an engraver/silversmith at a jewelry store located in a slowly decaying, medium-sized city in the Northeast. It was a torturous employment experience for me. They made fun of me behind my back. Once they gave me a plaque with my job title on it, Apprentice Glyphologist. I had been there about 6 months and one day they had a little ceremony for me. They presented me with the plaque amid an impromptu mock pomp and circumstance. Now, the title might sound glamorous, but the job wasn't, as I have already told you. I later found out that the title was not glamorous either. Glyphologist is Latin for plate scraper. The one saving grace for this job was this. It enabled me to attend early morning mass at a nearby church. It was a huge, beautiful, rose marble pillared, basilica-like edifice. It smelled great too, from almost a century of candle and incense burning. Every morning before I went to the retail hellhole of silversmithing, I would go to this beautiful large church and sit right in the front pew. I would slither in at the crack of dawn, quiet as a snake, and take my pew, the one closest to the tabernacle. That's my seat. Why is the seat closest to the tabernacle my seat? Because no one else was sitting there, that's why. No one else wanted it, but there she was every morning for the taking, a beautiful seat right next to the tabernacle. I hated my day job for many reasons, but moving every morning from the incense-scented altar of the church to the stench of the engraving chemicals at the jewelry store was disorienting me without my knowledge. Something was going on inside of me that I was oblivious to. But every morning with the sun there, I was in my pew cozying up to my tabernacle. One thing about me, I'm reliable and punctual. Every morning you could count on it. There I was like a fly on a honeypot, and that honeypot was the tabernacle. I can remember many mornings after Mass, I just didn't want to leave the place. My seat, my tabernacle. After my meditation period before the tabernacle, with the prospect of returning to the stench hole looming before me, the fly would often refuse to leave the honey. It was brutal. To go from the heights of heaven to an arena where I was a metal-scraping, noxious fumes inhaling laughingstock. Such was my career in the high-stakes retail jewelry business. They say that doing a job you hate builds character. I'll vouch for that. But I can tell you from experience, it builds something else. Here's my theory. Experiencing those two contrasting environments every day worked like a toggle switch in my mind, going back and forth, back and forth. Early morning mass, then the silversmithing job. Morning mass, then silversmith job. This daily work environment swap must have caused a certain psychological tension to build incrementally and steadily because something happened one day. Maybe the toggle switch broke, or maybe it was flipped on. I can't say for sure, but I can say in hindsight that the tension between these two worlds was steadily growing day by day. I was in pain and something had to be done. The tension had become unbearable. I was a young man on fire and I needed to jump into a lake to quench the flames. The lake I chose was the Tabernacle, so I concocted a plan to jump inside. For months I had made my pilgrimage. Each daybreak like clockwork, like a bird drawn to its nesting ground, like a bee to a honeypot, each morning I awoke to be with my tabernacle. Before the Mass, I sat with the tabernacle. After the Mass, I remained with the tabernacle. An unseen force had anchored my being to this sacred monolith. I paid my dues to the tabernacle. Now I felt she owed me one. Do not suppose this plan to be a thing of divine inspiration, nor some grand and elaborate scheme born of genius or mystical revelation. No, I confess with all humility and honesty that I stole it from a popular science magazine. It was a mechanical plan, a manufacturing process plan, a cold, methodical approach, devoid of romance, bereft of flourishes. Caveat, let no soul imitate my plan, for in the true simplex spirit, each postulant must carve their own path into the mystery of tabernacular contact. My plan is but a template, a scaffold upon which another might frame their own encounter. The plan. Yes, scoff if you will at its simplicity, but mock not the humble form, for simplicity promotes effectiveness. Simplicity requires no gilded ornaments, no ritual beyond the basic motions of faith. Moving forward like an unthinking sheet of metal on an assembly line, I will be shaped by a four-step process, exactly as the magazine article described. My footsteps will move along a path well known to my limbs, yet now electrified with an urgency never before felt. Here it is. The four actions of the process are: 1. Enter, as was my custom. 2. Genuflect and take my place, as usual. 3. Fix my gaze upon the tabernacle. 4. Ask the question, lower my head. Wait. Such was my plan. And I, a young man possessed by an insatiable hunger, driven by forces I understood not, I would execute the process plan to the letter. This was no erratic whim, no aimless fancy. This plan was the product of unbearable tension, of two opposing realities clashing within me, day upon day, until they could war no longer. And so, to the tabernacle's silent sanctuary, I would unload these energies, in the form of a question. The night before, I lay awake, restless, a soldier awaiting battle, a poet poised before the unwritten verse. I ran each step in my mind's eye, rehearsed every motion. I tell you solemnly, I was no madman, no drunken mystic reeling in ecstasy. I was of sound body and, as far as I can tell, in sound mind. Maybe it was like a man preparing to kneel before his beloved, to propose the great question of his life? Perhaps. Or it was something far colder, far starker, a machine setting itself to its task. An assembly line prepared for the execution of its design. Whatever the case, the morning came. Dawn broke, and I was already awake. I took to my car, turned east, drove into the heart of the city, the iron discipline of my plan governing each moment. The execution phase had begun. I entered the church, dipped my fingers into the holy water, and walked down the aisle. So far, so good. I approached my usual place, genuflected. The machine clicked forward, step by step. Step 1, completed. Step 2, executed flawlessly. I knelt. Step 3, I lifted my gaze, and then, Step 4, I asked my question. Then, the answer. No sooner had my head begun its descent when it came. A purple light, not quite a flash, but something more. A phenomenon lingering just long enough to be perceived. emanating from the upper right of the brass crucifix atop the tabernacle. A trick of the eye? A folly of the mind? I know what scholars would say, the psychologists, the skeptics. Expectancy bias. The mind, ravenous for signs, conjured up one from the void. So, they would say. But let them account for this. In that moment, as the air hummed with a purple presence ineffable, and I knelt there looking up at it with a not-too-bright facial expression, out from behind the altar stepped Priest B. Unbeknownst to me, he had been there all along, hidden in the sanctuary's unseen recesses. And now, as though summoned by the same electric charge that had lit the very air, he strode forth, no, rushed forth, to stand before me, his gaze locked upon mine, his expression one of silent confrontation. He gave me an angry stare. No words were spoken, no rebuke was issued, and yet, in his eyes, in his posture, in the sheer force of his presence, I knew I had trespassed. I had dared to touch the untouchable, to pierce the veil between the mundane and the divine, thus the corroborated purple flash. For it was not only I who had seen the sign, not only I who saw the potent energy that filled the sanctuary in that instant. Priest B, by his sudden appearance, by his stern and knowing glare, had affirmed the moment's reality. And though neither of us ever spoke of it again, the mark was made, the course was set. My priesthood began not with a formal calling, not with a word from man or angel, but with a silent question and an answer in violet fire. Let those who doubt, doubt. Let those who seek, seek. But I tell you this, very soon more than just me and Priest B would know of the phenomenon that had played out in the sanctuary that morning. The purple electric effluence was but the first of many such signs, the herald of the path I was to walk. The Simplex Prophecy by Mark Renhouse. Chapter 1, The